for our debrief, I thought we'd talk through what our creative process has been and kind of what we collaborated about, just to kind of bring us in. And for each question I've kind of got some thoughts, but it would be good to hear your thoughts, what you think about each thing as well. So we kind of began in the castle ages ago.
We did.
With a load of random objects. It'd be just good to remember like kind of where we started and where we ended up.
That was pre-Animate Live, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we had some characters that you were sort of developing.
Yeah, that were kind of coming out of the objects. So kind of the clock creature came out of that. And we had rubber gloves and pipes and things. And
we did. I think we spent a lot of time recording the audio from those objects.
Yeah.
And then just manipulating them slightly. And also changing the sounds of the objects that you were using. So,
and I kind of saw that all as like the groundwork kind of thing, which maybe didn't necessarily feature in the final piece.
No.
But it was all very...
It was definitely the start, wasn't it?
Yeah. And distinct memories for me is like when we had 2 microphones and we were like having the objects touch the microphones and playing with that kind of like
we had an amp there
and things.
And we were popping bits of microphone effects.
And
amplifying it.
But then I think that really came into its own at Animate Live.
Definitely.
The one with Jake, I don't know if you remember that, where suddenly it was all kind of seemed to be working, and I don't know what you did differently, or whether you did anything differently or
I think by then I had a better idea of how I wanted to do it in Animate Live, that aspect. But definitely that was that time at the castle was definitely the precursor for that at Animate Live. I think it just sort of clicked that that's what I should be doing at Animate Live, because I tried a few different things, recording sounds at Animate Live and then trying to do them back, but the process for that was a bit slow. But then something just clicked and I thought that's what we should be using.
So then I can't remember exactly what point it was, but we kind of took a leap from just playing around to actually creating something, because it was kind of this spring, wasn't it?
I think you you had new ideas all the time when we were working, and we just sort of worked to those ideas. And we sort of just, you gave me a bit of time to see how I would fit in with these ideas. Like the clock character, that sort of changed quite a bit throughout the process.
And then there was one point when I gave you briefs. And that for me felt like kind of like we were putting a structure in place then. Even though it was still very loose what was going to happen within each section. There was like 3 clear episodes that were going to happen. And then we did our performance. And built it from there. I think like my questions will kind of pinpoint more details. So we'll move on to them. So the first question is, what really worked? And specifically, like within the context of the synergy of sound and manipulation. So when do you think that was really on the nail? Either in the piece or at any point during the process?
In terms of the collaboration?
I
thought what really worked really well is that you'd bring a collection of objects and they were like stimulus for things that could happen, so we recorded all of them. And they sort of gave way and sort of gave me foundations to work on, even though they weren't necessarily like vital parts of the performance. That sort of just gave me like a bank of sounds that enabled me to just get on my own. So that was good. What was the question again?
What really worked? So what bits do you think were really good.
well, definitely the microphone effects. I thought really helped to glue the whole thing together. The sound bed, even though I would have probably liked to have done more of it live, but it definitely worked as sort of a basis to rehearse and to give us timings.
Yeah.
And I thought your timings on the actual day and even leading up to it were perfect.
Oh, yeah. And for me, really strong bits were when, the sound of the microphone, so when she's trying out the objects and when it's very obvious that the noises she's making and what we're hearing. And like you say, that would have been good to have more of that.
Yeah.
But it would have been good to find narratively a reason for there being more of that rather than just doing it for its own sake. To be here's the gimmick. The bit I think is really good is when she dies and you've got your wind down spring sound, and that was kind of sampled directly from her spring, but you manipulate it and it kind of really hits the nail of what's happening as well as
and that was just
being a direct.
That was just a simple sort of, I'd created a rhythm out of the spring sounds and then just pitched it down, which sort of emphasised her slowing down and the clock stopping. And even the clock, it just seems like it didn't have much to do with the story.
But
towards the end.
Visually and symbolically,
Symbolically, I think it did.
Clock and time's running out and all of that.
So that definitely worked, having everything sort of slowly sort of crash.
And with the bit with the spring winding down and then the spirit coming out, I think the use of melody there was extremely strong, and the minor key was just
the silence before all that kicked in was lovely, I think.
I think that's something I've really learned from this, is space and silence is really useful. Although I think there's an episode within it where there's too much space and it's too silent, kind of when she's on the beach. And I'm wondering now retrospectively whether we should have more of that sound of the sea just kind of in the background, so the sea is always rolling. And actually that's thing someone said to me was, maybe it's a two-hander and there is someone that just does the sea the whole show.
Yeah.
Cool. So is there anything else you thought was particularly good before we move on to the not so good bits?
I think we were getting the hang of just being patient with it. I thought throughout the rehearsals we were always a bit rushed. But
it would have been good, wouldn't it, if we just had a week on it one day or something like that, rather than snatching hours here and there and trying to force something to happen during that time.
I felt that we were rushing through our sections, but then the part where where the sea comes in before you start mingling with your materials. Thought that was a nice use of just stop, let the audience understand that she's on a beach, and then they can hear the sea, and then that crescendo of the sea swelling, and then sort of she appears almost out of the sea,
like she's been swept up,
and then she gets washed. So it's like every morning she gets
washed ashore. Nice. And I think also with that it was teaching the audience to listen as well, wasn't it? Yeah. Cool. So now the opposite. What didn't work, or kind of what bits still niggle you that I would really like to do that, or
probably
was never quite happy with that moment?
I would have probably spent more time building that clock loop up at the start, and maybe use a part of the poem where it was a bit more in relation to time or a theme, because she was, I can't quite remember the poem, but it's I hunt for rags to cover me, and even though we're building up that sort of clock theme, which worked, I think the poem could have...
Something I in retrospect, I'd really like to go and unpick it all again and kind of like find more imagery within it and find moments within the piece where you could break off again and find other parts of the poem to depict and then make them more relevant.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the imagery more relevant to the part of the poem. Something because I've been kind of like reverting back to the theory and the underpinning of how I got here kind of thing, and I looked loads at Freud's The Uncanny, and the kind of theory behind that is the double, and I was kind of like poking at it a little bit with me being the hag and speaking as myself and her being the hag and us all being the hag. But that's something I'd have kind of liked to have made more deliberate, I guess. There's this nice moment where her head first appears and my head's behind it, and I kind of never realised until I filmed it and saw from the audience like that first image, and I just think there's more I could have done with that.
Yeah, because I always saw it from the side, and I suppose watching from the side I was always concentrating on the puppet. But just going back to what I liked, and after speaking to people that saw the performance, they really liked the combination of being able to see the puppeteer and the puppet together, and I think a lot of people didn't realise how much acting goes into puppeteering.
I don't think it should. I think that's people being a bad puppeteer.
But I think a lot of your acting skill came out, which was good, and it's nice being able to read two things that are the same. I thought that's a nice touch, and I've noticed that about the other odd doll. It's just that there is this
duality.
Which is nice. It's interesting and 3D and
and I think there's something about, I don't know whether it's minds these days or just humans generally, you like to know how things are done and how it works, and there's something quite pleasurable in seeing how it's done, isn't it? So, are there any major decisions that shaped the process or changed the piece? Was there anything you did that was really like a
in terms of things that really shaped the piece, it could have been much different if who was going to record the audio for the poem originally?
Oh, Elsa,
Elsa.
Yeah.
So that was a big turning point, having those recordings that messed up. And then actually deciding to go down a more live route. Really shaped it, and I think actually
for the better. That was kind of like a happy mistake, really, wasn't it?
Definitely.
For me, it was also like rejecting the clock creature after being so in love with him and wanting him in it so badly, but then that kind of really worked.
And
changing
a lot
the
of people
material
said
of the sea and
that spirit they weren't sure if it was deliberate, and I'd never noticed it, but you had the plastic bag looking exactly like the
I
hat.
tried to give it anthropomorphic.
So it had like a big nose.
Did it? That is pure luck. But I gave it a head and a point of focus, but I didn't know it had a nose.
But there's a lot of people saying, oh my god, how did she get it?
I think that's their mind playing tricks on that, but that's brilliant, isn't it? That's cool.
Sorry, what was the question again?
Major decisions that shaped our process and changed the piece, or just other things that, or maybe is it like, did anything challenge you in the process? Like?
I definitely think having the clock loop was personally a good thing for me, because if I was in the audience and I was watching myself do it and there wasn't any more sort of liveness to the sound, I would have been like, oh,
they couldn't.
Yeah.
And my next thing is actually, how could we continue or expand the investigation? And I really like to do more with like loop pedals and like puppets making rhythms that are then forming scores. And I think that's something we'll do in the new Odd Dolls show. But
sure.
I feel like all this has been kind of like preamble to that.
Yeah, most definitely. And we could have brought the...
Carry on, it just stops after 10.
With a lot of the ideas, we sort of just glimpsed on them, didn't we?
And I think that was like a time and thing as well. It'd be, yeah.
So we tasted all these ideas, but maybe we could have had more time to develop them more.
But that's true of anything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even all that said, I think it had like really good shape and was a finished piece. You know, it wasn't like it was unfinished.
No. I think with these things as well, you just got to give yourself a deadline and say
whatever it is at that point. Is it? Yeah. So, do you have any other things you've like thought about it that you'd like to say?
What did you think of the audience laughing?
I was really pleased.
Really?
Because I'd find it funny. That's why I made it, because I'd find that funny. But I find really dark, warped things funny.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if anyone else would, and then they did.
Yeah, it sort of comforted me.
Yeah.
Like when I heard the laughing, like my heart rate dropped a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I just felt more relaxed.
Yeah.
Because I thought...
Well, then it's also like, oh, thank God they're enjoying it.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But then it's like, hang on, this, the story has come from somewhere deep.
Yeah.
And so, how does that sit? How does it sort of...
Yeah, but then I think also when people are uncomfortable or unsettled, they laugh, and that's also like uncanny. Like I was kind of trying to make people feel a bit ugh. So maybe it was just like a nervous reaction. I was really taken aback by how well it was received.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed working on all the different aspects.
Yeah.
It's just a definite. It was a good challenge for me because I'd never really worked with a performer in that detail before.
And it was great in the rehearsals as well. I remember like I'd work on my own and I'd find it really difficult, and I'd work with you and you'd just feed in ideas and things and it would just fuel it along, and everything seemed to flow so much better when you were there and I was alone with choice.
But given more time, all these ideas could be developed or thrown out and replaced with other things, but it'd be interesting to sort of take a few steps back and carry on.
Yeah. I was talking to a dancer friend of mine today about doing some play together, and we were saying how useful it is even if nothing comes of it. And I know we've had an outcome to this process, but even if we'd not, that would have been a really useful process anyway, just to develop yourself and your ideas and your potential of your ideas, kind of thing.
Yeah, well,
gets you thinking beyond what you're used to.
Definitely, yeah, it really does. And it has set the ground and it has set a standard for the next thing. Yeah. Another collaboration, all the things with Odd Doll, it's set a really strong foundation to develop on, which is cool.
Great.
Interesting.
Thank you, Aled.
No problem.
Anything else you want to add?
Well done.
Well done, you too. Thank you very much.
No problem at all.
So now we're just talking about the Animate Live element. And so this time we used boxes instead of having all the materials laid out, and that really, really worked. Because people didn't know what was coming, so it was really actually improvised and not preconceived. I wish I'd been able to use you more, but I kind of had too many musicians, really. I think
it worked quite nicely.
Yeah.
I would have for the musicians it's harder because they have to sort of if they're improvising, but then what if you've got two melodic instruments and they're still improvising, so they need to agree a key, and if not, then you always get sort of like that same sort of atonal, discordant, a lot of the pieces seemed really tense.
Yeah.
And then there was one that in particular that wasn't tense, and I think it was...
Was it Jake and Anthony and their string?
I think Matt was on the keys and he was doing something really happy.
Yeah.
Which was nice because generally all this atonal stuff comes out a bit like sinister.
Yeah. As do like inanimate things.
Yeah. So I think the musicians need more rules that they can agree to beforehand, or again, the musicians have instruments in boxes and they don't know what they're going to get out.
Yeah. That's something Rachel said, it should be surprise instruments as well, but I don't know if that's fair, because what if you can't play it? But then you'd just make mad noises with you, wouldn't you, I guess? Which works as well.
Yeah. And the other thing that I thought was, I love the audience participation. I think we should have picked someone out to conduct them. So maybe have a conductor, we give them sort of loud and quiet, because I think they got a little bit lost halfway. I think
and some were trying to be really loud and some were being really quiet.
Some of them just got there and they're just like that. It's like I think they just needed a bit more direction. Still would have been improvised. But that just would have kept them more happy.
I really liked what a humorous tone it all ended on with that group improvisation. I think it just kind of like, the night just had this kind of shape that really worked as an experience.
Definitely.
And it was good because it wasn't like hack, animate live group thing. It kind of flowed really nicely. I thought that improvisation with Anthony and Jake and the string, where it was all like beautiful and ethereal, and then something fell and broke, and the musicians were completely on it, and the music broke at the same time. That was the synergy right there. Yeah. And the magic.
Definitely,
yeah.
I think that's about it.
I'm not sure about LED lights. They were quite intense. I don't know.
I think.
Yeah, I wish I'd like selected Robin to be in some of them, but not all of them.
Yeah.
So that's what I was originally going to do, and then I felt a bit mean. But I think it would have added extra tone to the pieces if like some had just been under normal light, some had the coloured LEDs, and some were just torchlight.
Yeah.
I wish I'd done that. But
yeah.
I think it's great having an audience.
Definitely.
I think. I want to keep doing them, with an audience. Yeah. I want to find some funding so I can get you all to Denmark and like do it there with a load of Danish people. Yeah. But yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, really good shape, and it ended nice and loud, and do you know what I mean? The volume really rose for that last 5 minutes.
The plastic bag one, yeah.
But yeah, it had a really good shape.
Okay, let's stop there. Oh shit.